More on Fox Top Story. The shooter in Pensacola, Florida, was an aviation student from Saudi Arabia. According to a senior U.S. official, the school trains officers and enlisted students before they go back to their home countries. Guy Snodgrass is a former Navy pilot who trained at the aviation school in Pensacola several times. He's also been a Top Gun instructor and commanding officer of an F-18 fighter squadron. He joins me on Skype from Virginia. Guy, great of you to join us on this day here. Very tough day for the people down in Pensacola. You know this Naval Air Station as well as anybody because you were an instructor there, you flew there, and you should point out that having Saudi nationals train there is very common.
It is. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. And of course, condolences to the family of those who were either killed or wounded in today's attacks. Like you mentioned, I mean, whether it's the Saudi nationals or other nations that we participate with, that's a key part of the alliances and partnerships we have with other nations. It's important for us to host them here as students, just like we send some of our men and women abroad to serve with them.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that Fox is learning, we're not releasing any names, but Fox is learning more about the actual shooter, that he'd been on base for about a year, was on his secondary training, planned to be in the Saudi Air Force as a navigator, not a pilot. He was a very good student and very religious. It doesn't sound like anything out of the ordinary. How about that, Guy?
Well, you know, one thing that I found interesting back even in 2000, when I was going through my aviation pre-indoctrination training in Pensacola, the foreign nationals, just like the Saudis, they lived alongside us. We were in the same barracks together. They went to the same classroom programs as we did, and we also flew together and socialized together. So it's not unusual that we'd have this kind of close and continuing contact. Just like you mentioned, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but we do host those who will be pilots or navigators in their respective air forces.
And I know this may not be your area of expertise, Guy, but what about the vetting process for those who are coming from different countries? What do you know about that?
Well, of course, it's a stringent vetting process, whether it's Americans sending our men and women abroad to other nations or they're sending them to us. Typically, they go through a very close and careful vetting process to make sure that every nation wants to send their very best and brightest to serve as representatives when they're serving abroad. So I know there's going to be a lot more that people are going to want to look into to determine how this individual and how this event came to happen.
Yeah, and we know that guns are not allowed on the base. Guns are not allowed on the base, and we know that the shooter used a handgun. How in the world, and I don't want you to speculate, Guy, because you may not know, but how in the world, with the security as it is on naval bases, would somebody be able to sneak a gun into a classroom?
Well, just like you said, I think it'd be too quick for me to speculate on how that could have happened or how someone could bring a firearm onto base. What I can say is I've worked previously with the base commanding officer, Captain Tim Kinsella. Obviously a fantastic individual. I know that the Pensacola community is going to be in good hands with him as he looks not only to work with law enforcement to determine exactly what happened, but to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Yeah,
and you know, this is the second naval base shooting in 3 days. Does that raise alarms for you at all? Do you foresee an uptick in military base security, not just in this country, but for U.S. bases around the world, Guy?
I think you're going to see that if they can link these attacks somehow together. If you can show that it was coordinated, that might elevate the base security requirements, not only here domestically, but abroad. But I don't think we have enough information yet to make that kind of connection.
Yeah. Guy Snodgrass, good of you to join us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Trace.